Hello and welcome to Cataclysm University. My name is Varmithrax and this is course number 3, where we'll be learning about the interface. So this will be kind of a high-level overview of the interface elements and what it will tell you about your game world. I'm not going to go into super detail on every single item. I just want to cover what kind of information you can see at a glance in your game world in regards to the interface. So this is the starting screen for an evac shelter gameplay, and I've got my main game window here with the tile set graphics showing, and that's all of this entire section of the screen represents. Next we've got this section here, and this is the main portion of what I'm going to cover, but we'll mention a few other things. As you see me waving the mouse around, that spot right there is giving you the mouse view information. So it's a little pop-up window that will tell you about what you're pointing at. So if I point here at that counter, you can see there's a floor there, also a counter, has a 200 movement cost, as opposed to just the floor section that has a 100 movement cost. So it's twice as many movement points if I try to move over that counter. So that's very useful information if you're running away from something. You don't want to try to clamber over a counter if you can avoid it, because that will slow you down. It also shows you the lighting condition in that location is bright, and that the location is smashable, meaning the counter can be destroyed, and it's also considered flat terrain. So, very useful information. You can quickly point at things, point at piles of loot on the ground, point at NPCs to get details. A lot of good information. So you can use your mouse. That's pretty much its only use for the most part, is to point at things and get some details. It's a little faster than using the keyboard to do that kind of information. Just depends on your comfort level, what you want to do. So that is the mouse view. Now next up, let's talk about this section here. So this middle section is a notation screen that will show you information about the gameplay. So as you move, fight, and do things, any important information will start a scrolling list in this section. Now this section here is your little mini-map, and I'm going to move my character around a bit. You can see the mini-map change as I move. Those lighted and darkened sections are basically my viewing angles. So that cone here is what I can see out those doors. Same out this side and the south side and so on. So I've got 4 cones of view because I've got the doors open on all 4 corners of the building. So it looks a little weird at first, but you get used to it pretty quickly, and it's very useful information so you can have an idea of what you can see and conversely what can see you. So very important. You can turn off the mini-map mode if you don't want it or need it for some reason, or you can accidentally turn it off, and here's how you do so you can turn it back on again. It's just the Shift-N key, capital N. So by hitting Shift-N, it will turn that off and on, and so you get a longer scrolling list of your text information. Alright, so the next thing we're going to talk about is this section here. This is the main and most important section for quick and easy reference information. A lot of detail packed into that section. So I'm going to briefly point out most of the information and what it's used for. And there's actually a few things not shown on here yet. There are items and objects and skills and such that you can acquire in-game that might add or modify what you're seeing on this interface. And I'll show you an example of that in a moment. So this is a mini-map representation of your local area on the overworld map. So let me open the overworld map. This is how you can see the larger overworld area around you. So we're here in this evac shelter. We've got roads running around us and the town off to our east. There's a FEMA death camp down this direction. But what that little section is showing us is just a kind of a small snapshot view of the 2 or 3 squares directly around our current location. So that's what that is. It's just a quick reference of your local map. Alright, this section is your hit point list. So you've got these different locations: head, torso, left and right arm, left and right leg. Each one is independently tracked for combat. You can get hit in one location over another, and some monsters will hit you in particular locations more often than others. Spiders, for example, love to hit you in the legs. They're short and they'll go after your legs. So will, I think, dogs have a higher chance to hit your legs. So it can vary depending on what you're fighting. So you want to be aware of that and kind of learn where the danger points are. But these are hit point bars, and you'll get a pretty good idea of how they work if you've never seen them before. But the full green bar, like you're seeing here, means perfect health. As you take damage to a location, these colors and the shape of the bar will change. It's kind of like a gas gauge is the way I think of it. So full and empty, essentially. Full to the right, empty to the left. These will change to yellow and red colors, and the symbols will change slightly to show damage being taken as they get degraded. You want to be careful not to ever let your head or torso hit 0. That is the death condition. If either of those locations go to 0, you die. So sad, go roll up a new character. The arm and leg locations, on the other hand, can go to 0. What happens then is they become broken, essentially, and in order for them to recover, you have to craft a splint, apply it to that specific location, and then wear the splint for an extended period of time, could be weeks, and try not to let that get damaged again. And if enough time goes by and you manage not to get it damaged and you get good sleep and food and all these other factors, then eventually it will heal that location back up to full and you can take the splint off. Splints have huge negative consequences for encumbrance and other penalties, so you want to get that fixed up and or avoid that condition if possible, but at least it doesn't kill you. You can be a armless, legless stump and still be wandering around the wasteland killing things, but just don't let your head and torso hit 0. Alright, so that's the hit point bars. This power indicator is used for advanced bionic modules. There are items in the game called compact bionic modules, or CBMs. They're essentially cybernetic enhancements that you can have installed in your body. When you are using those, they run off of power, and that's what this will indicate, is how much power you have to run those devices. So, topic for another day to go into in detail, but that's what that indicates. This is your morale indicator, little face indication there. So it'll have 3 conditions. Neutral is the current one that's showing. It'll also have a happy face or a sad face. And that just indicates what direction your morale is trending. The neutral means there's no effects to your morale currently. It's going to stay right where it's at. Happy means you're a happy person and it's going to be increasing your morale, and sad is the opposite and you'll be losing morale. So morale is looked at through the V key, V like Victor. That brings up your morale effects. Right now I have nothing affecting my morale, hence the neutral condition. Alright, next we've got your statistics. These are the 4 primary statistics for your character. They will change color based on whether or not there are positive or negative modifiers being applied to them. So this will show you their current value, and it will color code them so that you know whether you're being positively or negatively affected by something. So keep an eye on that. If you see a bunch of red, you want to go pay attention and see what's causing those to go down. Next is the safe indicator. Very important, especially for newer players, to know and understand what that is and how to change it. So when you first log into the game world, you're in safe mode. What that means is as you move your character around, if you spot anything within visual range that could be dangerous to you, meaning creatures, monsters, NPCs, the game will halt. It'll freeze automatically so that you don't accidentally keep trying to move, such as if you were holding a movement key down. It will pause the game, warn you that there's something dangerous nearby, and you'll have to manually either tell it to ignore that person or thing or disengage the safe mode before you can move further. So it's a safety measure. That's why it's called safe. It's very important. You can turn it on or off with the Shift 1 key, which is the exclamation point. So you can see I'm toggling that on and off. You get a note here in your scrolling list of info that safe mode is being turned off and on, and you'll see the safe notification here also go off and on. Alright, so that's what that indicates. Next you have the stamina bar. Works like your hit point bar, but it's basically your breathing and energy level and stamina level. Doing things like sprinting or climbing over rough terrain, swinging heavy weapons, various things will drain your stamina. That's bad. You don't ever want your stamina to go to 0 if you can help it, and especially if there's any danger nearby. So you have to carefully monitor that, and that's how you do that through this. Kind of think of it like a breath meter. And there are audio cues also for when your stamina starts to get low. You'll actually hear heavy breathing noises get louder and louder to warn you that your stamina is draining. This is your specific focus number currently. So I've got a focus of 100. That is the balance point. Your focus value will always move it'll always move to 100. So if you're lower than 100, it will automatically naturally gravitate up to 100 and stop. And if you're above 100, it will fall to 100 and stop. And it does it at a slow, steady progression, and that's barring any modifiers that you apply to affect your focus level. So morale and focus are kind of a topic for another day. In more detail, I'll go into what those do and why they're important. But for now, that's what this is telling you, what your current focus is. Speed is a very important stat. Speed, you want this number to be as high as possible, and you want this number to be as low as possible. So this represents basically your movement or action points that you have available as a pool for the next 6 seconds. So the higher this number is, the better. That means you have more action points or movement points with which to accomplish things within a 6-second period or a turn. That's what a turn or a round consists of, is 6 seconds. So the higher your speed is, the more things you can get done, meaning you can attack faster, you can move farther, and so on. So when you see this number getting low, it'll change to a red color, and that's bad. That means you've got a lot of things affecting you negatively, and you're becoming slower and slower and slower, which will have the effect of making the monsters seem faster and faster and faster. So they'll be catching you faster, they'll be hitting you more often, and so on. So carefully monitor your speed rating. Now the number next to it is indicating what your last action cost in movement points. So let me give you a demonstration. So I'm going to move over to this spot right below this counter, and I'll show you what this means. So as I move, you'll note here a number has appeared. That is how many movement points the previous action cost me to execute. So it cost me 105 points to move from that space to this space. If I try to move up onto this counter, it's going to double that number because the counter costs 200 points. I get some bonuses based on various things, so it only costs 155 for me to move up there, but you get the idea. So moving here is only costing me 105, but if I move up here, it's costing me 155 to climb up and climb down off of that counter. So that's an example of what this represents. It's just letting you know what your last action cost in movement points, and it's a good way of monitoring your movement. And that you want to be as high as possible so you can get more things accomplished. So when you do things like unload your weapon, fire a weapon, activate things, there will commonly be costs associated in movement points, and that's how you know how long something might take. It'll give you a good representation. So if it says it's going to take 300 points, you know that's the equivalent of moving 3 spaces normally, roughly. So you can kind of find a balance and figure out for yourself whether it's a good idea or not a good idea and how long it's going to take to get things accomplished. All right. Running a little longer than I want, so let's keep moving quickly here. So that's that section. Comfortable is a temperature indication. So currently temperature is comfortable. You might see rising or falling notifications to tell you that it's getting warmer or colder. Next tells you where you're at. You're in an evac shelter. The local weather, there are flurries, snow flurries in the local weather. The moon indicator, this is important at night so that you can tell when there might be a full moon, which provides more light at night so you can see further in the evenings. Lighting is the space you're standing in. So in this space I'm in, there is bright light. If I move up a few spaces, now I'm in very dark light conditions because the light from the doorways isn't quite reaching me in this location. If I move up again, I'm adjacent to this computer terminal and now it's only cloudy. So it's just barely bright enough to read books, to craft, and so on, which makes lit computer or powered computer terminals very important for early game because they provide just enough light to get things done at night. Alright, so that's the lighting condition. Next we have the season and the day. So it is springtime. We're on day 1 of springtime. This is another important thing. This is a sun-moon path indicator. So what's happening here is there's a tiny dot just on the edge of the point right there where my mouse cursor is. That's the sun rising on the horizon. So what's going to happen is as time passes, the sun is going to rise on this little symbol, get bigger and brighter, and then come this direction, and then it'll start to fall as it approaches evening and nightfall, until the sun indicator disappears, at which time a little moon indicator will appear. So this is a way of telling roughly what time of day it is. So this is one section that actually will change based on items in the game. If during my travels and scavenging I find anything that provides a clock, so a watch, an actual clock, there's various things that will do it. A cell phone will do it. Basically, it provides you with a specific time. And instead of the sun-moon indicator here, you will actually see the time listed out in whatever format your game world is set for, 24 hours or 12 hours, military time, whatever. But you'll see the exact specific time listed right here. So that's one way that this interface can change. There are a few others, but that's the most common and obvious one. Alright, next is sound. It does exactly what it seems. Basically, it's saying how loud you are. So if I move a space, this is only sound 4, so it's not very loud, but zombies might hear if they're fairly close. But if I try to clamber up over counters, that's actually not that loud either. But let's do this. If I whack this counter with my fist, that was sound 9. So that's indicating how loud you're being. If I fire off a gun, that sound is going to go way higher. So that's giving you an idea of how loud you're being. Next is what weapon you currently have equipped. I've got my fists equipped currently. I don't really have much. Let's wield a permanent marker. So now I am wielding a permanent marker because I am a teacher. So that's showing the item you have wielded in your hands. And then this is an indicator of a martial arts style that you have chosen to use. So once you start pursuing the martial arts paths, and there's a number of different ones, actually there's a whole bunch of different ones, you can, through the keyboard commands, choose a particular martial arts style that you would like to have prepared and ready to use. And that's what that's going to indicate. So I don't have any on this character, so I can't choose anything, but that's that last element. So that covers 99% of what this shows you. Very, very valuable information. You want to glance at it and understand what it's showing you, and especially if anything is colored in red, you want to pay special attention to it. So your speed value, your stats, your hit point bars, and so on. So it does a great job of packing a lot of really useful information into a dense little area here once you know what you're looking at. So I think that will cover it for this episode. We ran just a little bit longer than I wanted to, but I think it was worth the time spent. Hope you agree. So hopefully you're looking forward to future courses. I'm happy to bring them to you. And if you have any further questions about this topic or any of the others that we cover in the series, please do use the Discord channel I've linked in the description below. That's the best place to try to get a hold of me, to leave questions that you might have. I'll try to answer them as quickly as I can. If I'm not available for any reason, any of the other folks that visit there that are also very knowledgeable about the game would be happy to help, I'm sure. So it's a great way to get help and information about this fabulous game. So, again, I hope you've enjoyed yourself, and have a great day.